All right, good morning, everybody. This is Don Yoakum. We are on the ProInsight channel, and today we're going to be talking about winning listings. This became a thought of mine because there's been a pretty dramatic market shift. And the really positive thing about that is that we're going to have listing opportunities that we did not have even a short time ago. My personal experience in real estate was that I started in '89, the market was smoking hot, and lo and behold, we went to war in the Persian Gulf, August 2nd, 1990, and the market shut off hard. The majority of my sales career, we had 18 to 24 months of inventory. They closed, we went into a good old recession in Sacramento. They closed 3 military bases, and pretty much the properties went down in value the whole time I was selling through the 90s. And it was a fantastic listing experience because the majority of the time that I was listing, we had 18 to 24 months of inventory. And so tons of expireds. I was just saying that that's how Tom Daves and I met because we kept bumping into each other, competing on them. And there's a whole new world out there available to you guys that have not been there. And I want to prepare you for that. And so the first decision that I want to encourage you to make is, what market are you going to lead? What market are you going to win, dominate, however you want to call it? Okay, so let's have some people declare their market. We know Amy chose floating homes when she came to Portland. Okay, but what are you going to choose? Nicole is in the Northeast. Is she going to choose the Northeast, or is she going to choose a neighborhood of that? I suggested before we began recording that the initial market area that you would choose, in my opinion, should not encompass more than 5,000 rooftops, and actually even starting with a little micro market of that, and partly because of expense. Historically, there has been a farming encompassed snail mails. Well, it turns out that's pretty expensive. And so if you launched your listing territory and were going after 5,000 homes and you started mailing 5,000 pieces a month, you'd go broke before you won that market. Okay, so I don't want you to do that. When I first launched, because I relocated from San Luis Obispo to Long Beach, and so that my dad could mentor me. And I was in this completely new environment, very young and a bit intimidated, frankly. And so what I did is I segmented myself off condominiums. So I became intimately familiar with basically 5 different condominium developments. Somebody needs to mute. And look at you, Hadley.
Slow it down that side.
Hold on a sec. I got to mute him. All right. So what I did was I chose these condominium developments partly because no one else. I was in a boutique office and with a lot of really successful agents. I quote got hired because of my relationship with my dad. They weren't typically hiring new agents. And these agents didn't want to work condominiums, right? Because that was like the low end of the market. And so I actually ended up getting referrals from other agents in the office also, and which was kind of cool. And I ended up taking out a full-page ad in the Harmon Homes magazine within 60 days of launching, calling myself the Condo King. I didn't have any active listings at that moment, but I had gotten permission to advertise all those listings, right? But sure enough, what happened is I eventually started doing all kinds of condo sales. And so I became referable because I had chosen this niche that other people were ignoring. And because I was so new to the market, I didn't know what the schools were, any of that. I just figured, hey, if I if I got inside these 5 different complexes and I learned the floor plans of each, and then I had the floor plans at my office, man, I would know that better than anybody. And so that's what I did to launch, and it worked. And so I'd love to hear from you guys, though. Does anybody have a niche? I know Troy kind of has this lifestyle idea, where he wants to ride his bicycle out the backyard of his listing, or have his clients be able to do that. But Troy, would you articulate your niche actually?
Yeah, I mean, that primarily is like my passion, and that's what I need for myself. And not everyone's going to have that. But a lot of my clients, in fact, I almost chose to ride my bike over there today to go check out the trails from this house. It's listing that I'll have in a few weeks. And it does do that. And so I do come across that because I live in an area where there's an abundance of trails and hiking and such right out the door. And so, my niche would be like right around Golden, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, but for other people, it might be, they want to walk to downtown. They want to go to the Rockies game. They want to stroll or to go get coffee. They want to walk to yoga or wherever. So for me, it's just mainly just embodying the lifestyle and saying, hey, the house is more about the vaulted ceilings and the granite or whatever. It's about, what can you do from your house from a lifestyle perspective, and just encouraging other people to think that way as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's plenty of people that do think that way. I happen to be one of them. I was looking at some property this weekend, and we were just talking about wanting to ensure the proximity from the house to Post Canyon trails, right? And so, that is a conscious decision of mine. And so I think what you ideally want to do is you want to market to people that already have that desire in them, right? And so, like in your case, I know you've become active in different bike clubs, and I think you're maybe even getting on the board of the Evergreen one. And I know you're the one that introduced me to the bike shop, to get my bike tuned up there. And those are obviously places where you would meet like-minded folks, right? So what you might do, that exercise that we did, I don't know how many classes ago it was, but do some mindstorming on 20 ways where I could reach people that have that mindset, right? And start going after some of those sources. Who else has identified a niche that they want to pursue, and we could troubleshoot it just a little bit? Darren, you're in Southwest Portland. Are you going to be the bad boy in that neighborhood? What's the story?
Well, I'm here to get inspiration, because I haven't really focused on a niche or a niche per se. And so, but yeah, that's definitely something that I'm here to learn, basically. So yeah, I'm open for ideas, to be
okay.
quite frank. So,
well, in Southwest Portland, you have some really cool neighborhoods like Sherwood. Are you pretty close to that?
I'm not far.
Yeah.
But
so
I'm closer to more of the Hillsborough region.
Okay. Well, couple things. When you choose your territory, I think it's super important that you be in proximity to that territory.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're closer to Hillsborough, choose Hillsborough.
Mm-hmm.
But, one of the things that Nicole mentioned earlier was just, being passionate about it, not worrying so much about the competition. I could not agree more with that statement. Okay. If you're excited about, well, first of all, you chose Hillsborough for some particular reason, right?
Yeah.
What do you like about it?
Well, I like the how close it is to it's the happy medium between the beach and downtown Portland. And so,
Okay.
and all the parks that they have around here, through Tualatin, Parks and Rec. And so, you know, and I got 3 kids. And so having access to tons of parks, you know, is awesome. So yeah, just family friendly, neighborhood. It's a family friendly neighborhood.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you've got there some reasons to go after that market. Now, the next question becomes is how well do you know it? One thing that you've mentioned now a couple times are the parks. So one of the things that you could do that comes to mind for me, you know, people are doing all these Facebook lives and, you know, just with their iPhone, and
Yeah.
why not go to the park with your kids and do some filming of the park and talk about some of the features of it and why you like it, why your kids like it. And, you know, if there's an event that they're going to be having there, talk about that. And, you know, maybe you could get together with some other affiliates and throw a little event of your own, you know. I don't know if they would allow you to have a bounce house there or something like that, but, you know, do something fun, you know, plan an event around that type of stuff. Right. And
Yeah.
so that it really enables you to connect with people like you that have families and want to enjoy some good, clean living.
Yeah.
Right. And
Good.
do it before the rain starts.
Nice. No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Okay. So, but the way that I want to, if it's geographic, like we're talking Hillsborough, I want you to think about, I literally want you to work with the title company and figure out what 5,000 rooftops looks like, and what the, you know, usually there's major highways and things that would be natural borders, right? And so set up your territory, and then let's also, everything you do, you probably don't have to worry about where you get your hair cut, but but where you get your car washed,
Good
you know,
call.
where you get gas, where you go to restaurants, and do all of those things in your community, in your neighborhood, right? Be a huge advocate of them. You know, just like I said, doing a little video, you know, some other things that people have done that are really fun are interviewing a local business owner in Hillsborough and talking about, you know, maybe they do a Taco Tuesday or something like that. And, or maybe they're going to have a little happy hour that you're going to attend, and, you know, and have you and a lender sponsor a drawing or something for people that show up, you know. I mean, just do fun things like that. But choose this 5,000 area. And the way that, that I want to have you guys think about this is, think about it in the context of like a 5-year plan. So remember, I told you, you don't start off mailing to 5,000 people because you're going to go broke before you get there. But, you know, can you adopt a 4-pillar approach with 250 rooftops? Okay. So mailing 250, doing open houses as close to that 250 rooftop area. That's not always possible. So you might have to do the 5,000, but you could have directional signs be close to your home market. And then every 90 days, assuming that you're making progress in that farm, you could incrementally increase your farm area. So if you break up a year into 4 quarters, there are 20 quarters in 5 years. And so you see how you could step from 250 to 5,000 by increasing your farm by 250 each quarter. The other thing that you can do is you can go to the title company and have them give you a complete list of every single homeowner in that 5,000 area, and then matching a pin to email and phones, which you can get like from Property Radar, and then do a match to Facebook accounts. So when you're doing an open house in your market, you're dropping into the news feed of all 5,000 of those. Now that you can do. That's not that expensive.
Where do you get
you?
Radar?
Where do you get what?
Property Radar.
PropertyRadar.com.
Okay. It's a website, not an app. Just go to a, okay.
Yeah. And the reason why I like them is because your title company can give you tax roll information. Got a passenger there. I love it. But it doesn't always match to demographic information. There are some that do. Usually they will charge you a few cents a record to enhance the data with phone and email. And you oftentimes will need that to be able to match and append to Facebook accounts to build a custom list, because Facebook's not going to allow you to target that specifically. So you'll have to build your own custom list to do it. Okay, besides Amy though, who has got a niche in mind? Like she did floating homes, I did condominiums. Does anybody have a niche in mind that is not geographic, but property type? Like Don Austin has, talked about going after the senior community. That's another niche. Golf course property. I know a guy that does riverfront property. Does anybody else have a fun niche that they want to share? Oh, hunting property by Michael Williams. Yeah, that's cool. Boy, you're in Idaho, right, Michael?
I am. I'm up in the Panhandle in North Idaho.
Right. So what's the city nearby you?
So I live in Coeur d'Alene. So Coeur d'Alene is kind of and we're about 30 minutes from Spokane. So a lot of agents are Washington and Idaho, but I just stick to Idaho.
Cool. Well, based on what you're hearing me say, I support that. The beauty of our model, though, is that you could get yourself a sub-agent in Spokane, right? At some point.
Oh yeah, I have partners there.
Yeah, perfect. So, but in Coeur d'Alene, I mean, such a popular, almost like resort area even, right?
Yeah.
Have you, you mentioned hunting property. So what does that look like? How do you carve out a niche in that category? What are you doing to distinguish yourself?
So I haven't really, I'm just kind of started to switch over to that. What I did is I helped stand up a nonprofit it's through Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, but it's the Armed Forces Initiative. And it's a whole nonprofit to get veterans involved in the outdoors, hunting. We just started a couple months ago. So I just pretty much talk. There's only one other agent in the area that kind of concentrates on hunting. There's not a ton there's a good amount of recreational properties I would like to kind of add to that, but it's just kind of, that's my hobby. So I figured.
Well, and again, like we were talking about with Nicole, doing something that is within your interest and passion is absolutely right on. That's the same thing with Troy, right? I mean, he's very passionate about biking. So, he's integrating himself into those types of organizations. Some other things that come to mind for hunting is that, there's probably a few different places that people go to buy supplies, camping and ammo and everything else, right? And you cannot pay a referral to an unlicensed person, but it probably wouldn't hurt to, when you have a client that is in that category, to be extremely generous with a closing gift for a gift certificate to that establishment, right? And just the mere fact that you go in and you buy yourself a $100, $250, $500 gift certificate, depending on the price point of the property, maybe, or how much you like the client. That's going to make an impression on that store, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and also, can you help organize some? I'm not much of a hunter myself, but I can imagine being intrigued with having. I mean, what's the strategies? In other words, what if you had a super successful hunter do a talk after hours at the store, and you invited a couple hundred hunters to come and listen to this legendary guy that, you know, has gotten his buck every year, you know, for the last 28 years or something, right?
Yeah, that would be definitely a hook.
The buck
Right.
stops here. Sorry.
So what, but you know, one of the things that you could do is maybe talk to those establishments, you know, the supply stores, and ask them what kind of promotions have been effective, and you know, what could you do? You know, you want to promote, like you said, you know, veterans getting involved in the outdoors, hunting, fishing, etc. You know, what could you do to help? Do you have a database where you can filter by hunting and fishing, camping folks?
I don't. Well, I just know because it's such a smaller group that I was going through kind of my database this last year, and I was looking through all my repeat clients, and it occurred to me that all my repeat clients, and they came from internet leads too, but they all were people that were also interested in hunting. And I either took out to a spot, we went duck hunting or something like that. So it kind of dawned on me, maybe I should concentrate on that, because all my return ones were extremely loyal compared to the other ones.
Right. Okay. So my encouragement to you then is, I want you to go back into your database and I want you to tag those records. Okay. This is a hunter. This is a fisherman or woman. This is a camper, right? Or maybe have a category where they do all of them. I'm guessing you probably do, right? Call that person the outdoorsman, right? And then when you know you're going to go duck hunting, okay, have the ability to go into your database and pull up a dozen people that are duck hunters, right? And say, hey, you know, a week from Saturday, I'm gonna, on such and such a date, I'm gonna go duck hunting. We're gonna meet for breakfast and coffee at this place at this time, and then we're gonna go. Let me know if you want to join us, right? And then start getting these guys coming together, and you be the connector, right?
That'd be awesome.
And you know, it's going to make it more fun for you, and also what I want you to do is, I want to have you get this reputation, not only as having this niche, but as a connector, right? Connecting them to these establishments that you're trying to help promote, connecting them to each other. You know, you were talking about, again, the veterans getting involved. You know, some of them are still suffering from PTSD or whatever. I mean, the more that you can do to encourage people to have relationships, you know, I mean, I think all that stuff is super, super duper positive.
Hey,
Okay.
Michael, I got an idea for you. It all started, a lender reached out and he wanted to do like a buyer seminar thing at this brewery. And then it turned into like, let's do a bike event. And then I talked to a guy that I know, a lender rep. He's like, why don't you just flip the switch and don't even make it about real estate at all, but make it a charitable event. So what we're going to do is have a bunch of people in the bike industry. And so I'm teaming up with vendors, local people, to make it a community event. And then the money is going to go back to a charitable cause in biking, specifically with kids, giving them the opportunity that we have. So maybe something that you could do is, you know, throw a huge camping or a big hunting party with awesome vendors. You could have giveaways, maybe in a super awesome spot, you know, that costs a lot of money, and you could, you know, get some of these vendors to give away some of these prizes, and then just, you know, just make it about that and see how many people you can invite, and then try to raise X number of dollars for a conservancy, some sort of charitable cause around hunting and fishing.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool.
Yeah, that's great, Troy. Thank you. You know what else comes to mind for me, Michael, is you guys are being infiltrated by Californians.
Yeah, I am one. So.
Exactly. What city did you come from?
I came from Bakersfield, California. So I was an agent in there for a while, but
Just the good old armpit of the world there, Bakersfield.
oh, I love it. Good asbestos.
So, you know what else you might do is build yourself a network of California agents that are hunters. And then every quarter, set up some kind of an event. And that the guy in California wants to do with you, right? In other words, because you have your sphere. What you want to do is you want to find another California agent that is like-minded like you and is going to produce this go after this niche of outdoorsmen. And then why don't you guys co-promote each other's events, right? Yeah, like Kenny is saying, Russell Inner is a big hunter and he's in our organization. He's in Sacramento and he's got an incredible sphere, right? Because what you want to do also is you want to become the go-to agent for those relocations from California. And then like you did, there's going to be plenty of agents that are going to end up either buying second homes or relocating from California. So now what you've done, and you might also have, what else comes to mind? I mean, we could go on forever. I want to switch into some more tactical things, but what sounds really fun to me is set up a tenants in common for a hunting cabin, where you sell a dozen shares and each person, you have somebody manage the property and each person buys, it as a 12th share. So they would have 1 month allocated to them. And, you could have some kind of a system of, drawing for timeframes, right? And then you could do a Zoom with all the California hunter people, and you could promote this hunting cabin, this listing, and make it. I mean, when I say cabin, it could be a $3 million estate that they're, if you're buying a $3 million estate, 1/12 interest is only $250,000. I could easily exchange from a dumpy little rental in California into that, right? Now I've sold a $3 million property and you become known as the guy that can move these high-end lodges, right? I mean, some people will want to buy them themselves if they've got the dough, but make it, if you set up a partnership like that with an attorney and the tenants in common agreement, my dad had a property up in Truckee and he bought it by himself, but then he set up a leasehold interest for 8 people. So they each had 1/8 of the time at the property and they met once a year to do a little lottery for the dates and so forth. And people traded and so forth. But so even though he owned it wholly, he got quite a bit of income from it so that actually it cash flowed for him. So, that's another way to do it. Anyway, I don't want to stay too long on that, but I want you guys to I hope what I left you with is do something that you're genuinely passionate, interested in, or that really well. Leave no stone unturned. I want you to, whatever niche that you decide on, make a commitment to yourself and to your clients that no one will know it better than you. Right? You never want to have, when I would be driving to these listing appointments, I'd be asking myself, well, why me? I mean, there's like 8,000 agents. I think there's like 15,000 now, but back in my day, there were about 8,000 agents in the Sacramento metro area. There'd be about 500 that worked that geographic area. And I wanted to be able to answer the question, if all of the best competitors showed up, why would they still choose me? Okay. All right, so now let's talk about some more tactical things. And also, you guys, I want to leave time for a couple listing objections that you're encountering that you're afraid of that are going to come up. So I'm going to assume that you've chosen a niche that you're excited about. Then I'm going to assume that you're going to know that area or that property type better than anybody else. As I had mentioned to Nicole earlier, that would mean not choosing an area where she couldn't visit 100% physically, not on the computer, drive 100% of properties that have sold that year, okay? And the available ones, preview them, okay? But now let's talk about how we're going to promote it. I would absolutely download the tax roll information for my entire farm. So I'd have that in my database. I would match and append it with a firm like Property Radar so that I had phones and emails. I would have the ability to then match to Facebook accounts. I could slide dial voicemails for promoting open houses. And I could snail mail to 250 and then be increasing by 250 every quarter, right? 20 quarters in 5 years. So eventually I would be mailing to all 5,000. Okay, so one of my favorite strategies, first of all, people are going to say, well, what are you going to do to get my home sold? And I want you to do is look right over them at them and just say, I'm going to do whatever it takes. That being said, one of the things that I have done in preparation for bringing your home to market is I know our market. You know, I've physically visited 100% of the properties that sell every year in our market, and I've built a database of every agent that has even sold one property similar to yours in this market. Incidentally, there are 13,000 agents in the Sacramento metro area. There are roughly 500 that work your geographic area, let's say of Carmichael. And there are 37 of us that have sold a property similar to yours in the last year. Right before we go to market, I am personally going to reach out to 100% of those agents, the 37 that have had any success at all, even if it's just one home. Because if they've been working in this area, if they had a listing in this area, they may have talked to other people that are interested in this area, right? And so we'll leave no stone unturned. Okay, now how much does it cost you to call 37 agents? Zip, okay? But yet you have personally contacted every single agent that has even had one success. Some of you, like Darren, are like, man, I'm kind of new. I'm a little bit worried of running into some top agent. Well, let me tell you, Darren, that top agent, they're not going to make the 37 phone calls, okay? And remember what I said before is no agent has over 15% market share. I mean, I have seen it. By the way, for a short period of time, I maintained over 15% market share in this little farm area in Sacramento behind Arden Fair Mall. But it's super duper rare, okay? And I'd be curious if anyone could find a market where there was an agent that had over 15% market share. It's extremely uncommon. And so what you're doing, and by the way, the other thing that will happen is you guys will be intimidated by some agent that's selling, you know, some crazy number of properties, 50, 60, 150, okay? But then when you actually do the math, they sold 3 in your farm area, okay? And you may have only sold 12 homes, okay? But you sold 25% more than that agent, right? And so, you know, when that comes up, well, this other agent, you know, they say they're the #1 agent and all that. And, you know, I mean, don't throw them under the bus. That being said, it could sound something like, hey, that agent is a top agent in the Sacramento area. In fact, I think they're claiming to sell over 100 properties a year. But because I actually do track the activity in your market, which I think you'd agree is what's most important to you, I can tell you that agent sold 3 homes in the last year in your area, and I've sold 4. Okay, that doesn't necessarily make me better than them or them better than me. I'm just saying that I've made it my interest and passion to be the best agent in your particular neck of the woods so that I can get the greatest value for you, right? And that's a way of overcoming that top agent syndrome, so to speak. Also, if you've got that database and you've meshed in Facebook accounts, you're going to get more people at your open houses. You know, with all the technology, guys, that we have today, you know how people know who the market leader is? It's those little signs.
Yeah.
It's the signs. Yeah, I mean, Eric is saying, yeah, I mean, and Eric's an icon level producer in the foothills, right? So, you know, when you put out open house signs, don't put out 4 to 6, put out 10 to 12, like Sierra does, okay? And get them out there at 7 in the morning and make sure the homeowner's not there. And have a flyer in the flyer box that says you're going to be open from 12 to 4. And if they can't make it by then, have them come by, have them call you personally for a private showing of that home or some other, okay? And then on the weekends, you're not doing open houses, put out another 10 to 12 signs, but instead of saying open house, it says home for sale.
So Don,
Go ahead, Eric.
It's so weird in our community, in our culture, it's so rural, it's so different. I mean, it's
Mhm.
great, but we don't do open houses. It's kind of amazing. It's very rare. Once in a while, we'll do broker tours, and it's really hard to get in our neck of the woods. And to kind of touch on a few points that you made, which is great. And that number 5,000 homes is great, but that would be 3 or 4 townships, which is actually my core area, right? There's 751 people, and in 3 towns, I think there's 3,000 people because that's on the Facebook group, right? And I think that number is inflated because people have moved. So, I want to specialize in that area, but and I know open houses are a great way to traffic, and I'm now thinking about changing that up here to, you know, actually doing open houses and figuring out, because I know it's a great vehicle, but people just don't do it, you know? And by the way, the email list to the agents, I had thought about that. So a couple of points.
Not email. I want you to personally call them. I mean, you can email them too.
Yeah.
Okay. But I want you to actually personally call them and give them a heads up. Hey, I'm going live on this listing tomorrow. And just because you've been active in the area, it looked like you sold the property on March Lane in April. I wanted you to have a heads up.
Nice. So one of my mentors is a top commercial agent in San Francisco, and he has this email list, and he tells other agents and acts like, oh, I'm going to add you to my list because I've got this special insight, and it works, you know. And I don't think he has more than a 50 or 100, but he basically says it's the Stu Insider list. But that's his marketing. Every time he's got a new listing, he blasts it. He blasts all his listings to other agents. And I seen that work for him.
Yeah, it absolutely works. I think email, I find to be, if you guys ever want to get a hold of me, don't send me an email, okay? Because I'm buried in email. So that's why I'm not saying don't do it, but don't count on that being an effective mechanism, because it's so busy in that particular channel.
Right.
Okay. But what I am saying though is that if I were actively selling in your area and I got a personal call from you, and 4 out of 5 times you're going to get voicemail, right? Hey Don, you've been active in this area. I've got this home going live. I just wanted you to have a heads up. If you would like, I put an email out to you with a link with some photos that I did in preparation for it. We're going to be doing an open house on Sunday. If you want to send your buyers by, just let them know that you sent them. They'll be protected, blah, blah, blah. Right? Something along those lines. Anyway, but here's what I don't want. Okay. I don't want you guys to fear anyone. I want you to know, if you look at the comps, if you physically, if you personally reach out to every agent that has sold a property before it goes live, okay, if you've downloaded the database of all of the homeowners and then drop a promotion about the property into their Facebook newsfeed, okay, there's no one doing all that, okay? And if they're not doing open houses in your area, Eric, do the home for sale.
Yeah.
Like my buddy Dave Chappell did in Folsom. And
So let me ask you this: how do you link
Go ahead.
Facebook accounts? I'm really fascinated. That's just mind blowing. I'm like, how do you do that?
yeah, well, it's a pretty simple process for a digital marketer, of which I am not, but I have had people do it. And so, by the way, Zach, who I introduced you to, probably could do it for you.
Nice.
But essentially, when each Facebook account has a name associated with it, an email, sometimes a phone number, sometimes a mailing address, and Facebook has an IP address, so they actually matched your Facebook account to your physical address as well.
Wow.
And so you can usually get about a 40% match rate from a custom list to Facebook accounts, and then you can drop the whatever you want to drop. You know how in your Facebook newsfeed you'll see sponsored?
Yes.
That's what that is.
Yeah. So that's how you do it. That's how because I think it's brilliant. I think that's a great vehicle. One thing I've noticed is that we're in our little backwards town, though. The whole water cooler talk, the entire talk of the town happens on Facebook. And so that's one of my goals of
Yeah, there
really
you go.
capturing the market share, because it's amazing how much goes on there about news and all that. And one of my ideas for specializing in the area, I'm being known because I think my geographic area isn't going to be a niche, but be up here, because most of the agents in the broader county, the two counties that I kind of cover, don't want to go in this neck of the woods. They don't want to go up the hill. And it's very pejorative in their mind, but that's my specialty, is being right in this is my backyard. And there's a lot of homes here. And I was thinking about doing a news show, a weekly news show with a real estate report focused on just these three townships, West Point, Wilseyville, Railroad Flat, and just have a news show that goes on Facebook.
Sure. Well, and like Patrick was just saying in the chat, why don't you do a Facebook Live from the house or from an open house?
Yeah.
Right. Lots of stuff, you guys. Hey, we're running short of time. Who has got an objection for a listing that they fear? Come on, give me a nasty one.
Don, I don't have an objection, but I've been struggling with this lately.
Yeah.
I'm having, I don't know if my phone's on speaker so I can hear you better. So especially with this market, my sellers, I'd say like more than 50% of them are still delusional. And even how much I try to, build rapport and tell them how important it is to price it right, we're still pricing things 30, 40 grand over what I think we should be at.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just, we're not getting activity, man. So it's like almost have to lowball them what I think it is, because it's just the mind game with negotiations and how they always want to win and how they always want to think it's their price.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something I'm struggling with right now, is letting them know a price, and then they're tacking on another 30K, and then we're just sitting there.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I was listening to a YouTube video this morning, and they were talking about the phenomena that the sellers are looking at old comps and the buyers are looking at where the market is going, and there's a huge disconnect. So during this period, we call it a cresting period, where the sellers and buyers are on different pages, and they so what you guys have noticed is the volume has dropped tremendously, and like Hadley is having properties come on the market overpriced and then they just sit, right? So there's a couple things. First of all, what I want you guys to lose from your vocabulary is I think or I can, okay? It is not about you. The last thing you want to do is get in a pissing match with your seller, okay? Even though you know better than them, what we want is for you to share with them the market data. Okay. And so the phrase is something more along the lines of the market at this time is indicating this. Okay. What can you sell the home for? Well, today the market is indicating this. Here are these comps, right? My goal is to get you the highest and best price in this market. It's also important that we don't follow the market down because we have had a correction, right? And so what is a little bit tricky in this market, I gotta say, is that the market has shifted, but there's still not a crazy amount of inventory. Remember, I told you guys I was dealing with 18 to 24 months of inventory. You guys don't have that yet. And so the problem that Hadley's running into is that he's got these sellers that want to price off old sold comps, and they're still not, the sellers, by the way, they're smarter than you realize. Okay. And they have all kinds of tools now that they can go out and look at values. They can go look at Zillow or Redfin or whatever, and they're getting their Zestimate. And that may be old news. One of the things that I've done, Hadley, and what I would say is the most important listing strategy that I have found to get price reductions or to list correctly. I was quizzing you guys the other day, and I was saying, okay, well, what's the number one strategy? And the number one strategy is have more listings than you need. Okay, because if you have more than you need, you're going to be willing to share the truth. Okay, and also the other deal is have sellers that you're representing that need to move. The beauty of our business is that people get married and they get divorced. They have babies and they pass away. They get job transfers. Their businesses go up and down. Okay, these are not small events. Okay, find somebody that has a life event that is requiring them to sell. It's not an option. By the way, a really fun takeaway for sellers, if they're being a little obstinate on their price, is just to say, hey, well, is renting an option? Oh no, are you kidding? No, I need the equity from this home to be able to buy and blah, 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 right? But what you're doing is you're using kind of a takeaway on them, right? Because they're being unreasonable in price. And you're saying, well, you're basically communicating to them, I don't need your sale. Okay, if you don't want to price to the market, I want to see if there's another way I can help you get you what you need. Is renting an option? Well, for some of them, it might be. And then help them with that. Okay, be a real estate resource. That's fine, right? But I was going to tell you, Hadley, sometimes what I would do is I would physically make them get in my car and I would drive the comps with them. Now, mind you, again, when I was selling, we had crazy amount of inventory. So there was a ton of competition out there, okay? But the thing that you're trying to do is just help them to understand that that they know they're overpriced. See, they don't think they have anything at risk because your listing is on contingency.
Mhm.
But I can't tell you the number of sellers that I had where I would go in and say, okay, well, we should be at 269. And then they'd say, okay, well, we'll list at 289.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they would come back to me 60 days later when it didn't sell. Okay, Don, we'll go for 269. Well, now we need to be at 250.
Yeah,
Okay.
seriously.
And they would say, okay, well, I'll go to 269 for now. And then they would come back and say, okay, Don, we really got to move to 250. And I'd say, okay, well, it's 239. I mean, dozens of sellers like that. And they just followed the market down.
I think I heard this line from you, Don, but I did use this one on a seller. I said, do you think the market's going to get any better in the next 60 days? Like, where do you think we're going in the next 60 days? And the seller's like, no, and she dropped it 100,000 because it's a unique property, very, very small buyer pool in my area. But I noticed that line worked. The problem I'm having with these current sellers are they just bought like 4 months ago at the peak, and now it's worth probably 30 grand less than what they paid. But I said, you can't just stay in a house for a couple months and expect to make money sometimes.
No, I mean, even in a flat market, they're going to lose 8%.
Yeah, I said, you need to rent. That's what I said. I said, rent it out. I said, right now is not the time to sell. And that's because I do have quite a bit of business, and I'm not trying to waste my time on clients that are going to give me a little bit more headaches. I'm going to tell them, what's true, and just see how. But that's what I've been noticing. I think I can change my wording and stuff, like you said, Don. Something I probably need to address, but that's been a little bit of a struggle right now in this current market. I missed 8 months ago when you just list that whatever and it just sold.
Right. Well, yeah, it's a different world now. So you guys, I want to help you understand how a market cycle works, okay? Because you're going to run into people that are going to think it's going to be all better in a year or two. So here's how a cycle works. We are in what's now called a cresting period, where the sellers are wanting to price off old comps and the buyers are looking towards the future, and we have this disconnect. And so what happens is you end up in a cresting period. The values actually don't drop that precipitously, but the inventory grows, and then the market shifts from a seller's to a buyer market. That cresting period will typically take about a year, okay? So just imagine a roughly flat market for 1 year. Then what happens is the market drops for 2 years, 20 to 25%. Not the 40 or 50 like the crash of 2008. We're not expecting that, but it drops 20 to 25%. So now we're 3 years in, and we're at least 20% below today's market value. Okay. Then what happens is the market goes flat for 2 years. So we're 5 years in, and we're minimum 20% below today's market value. Then if the market, and by the way, when it starts to come back up, it doesn't start aggressively. It starts really light, like 2 or 3% the first year that it climbs out, and then 4 or 5, and then 5%. It's actually the most aggressive right before the peak, okay? But let's just say, for the sake of our conversation, that it goes up at 5% a year from the bottom. It'll take 4 years to get back to today's value from the bottom, and that's 9 years from today. And you can show them, if you do your homework, you can show them how over the last 40, 50 years, how this cycle has happened. Actually, the last one was a crash. It was more severe. We're not expecting that because we don't have such an excess of inventory like we did have. And we have a lot of people that have actually quite a lot of equity, which is different from our environment in 2008 as well. So, but I think the thing that we do have, and this is a number you should be intimately familiar with, is affordability. Okay, it really doesn't matter what the inventory is. If people can't afford to buy the homes, they're not going to buy the homes. So the affordability index drives the market. Really, there's a super strong correlation, and that is a leading indicator. It's not the souls, that's ancient history. Okay, even the pendings are history. The inventory, they're going to say, well, we still have a seller's market technically. Well, we have a cresting market actually. Okay. And so you guys know your market, understand the cycles, and you can go back and you can actually, if you're a little bit of a statistics nerd like me, you can actually go back and you can get the market cycle information for the last 40, 50 years. And you can help when you can articulate that cycle, because you're going to run into, literally, if you're prospecting a lot, you're going to run into. 100 people that are going to say, well, yeah, I'm going to sell when the market comes back, like in a year or two from now.
Don, where do you go to get that kind of data for that long back?
Yeah, your MLS might have it.
Okay.
Title company, your title rep may have it. Like WFG in your market used to track affordability. Actually, they tracked all kinds of data on their site. WFG National Title. Talk to one of those reps and see if you can get a hold of some data from them. Okay, you guys, we're beyond the hour, so we need to wrap up. But I hope this has been valuable to you. If you choose your niche, I want to hear about it. And keep in mind, once you choose your niche, do like we talked about with Michael and brainstorm on how you can find people in that niche to collect your tribe, and then have some fun with it. And then you'll have all the business that you need. This is for me anyway, if I were to go back into selling, we're now moving back into a market that would actually suit me, right? Because I'm more of a listing agent. And I hope you choose to view this as an opportunity and make it happen. Thank you so much. And